All right, well, welcome to Westport Talk, ministry here of Westport Baptist Church. We're located here in Denver, North Carolina, and we use this podcast, vidcast, whatever you want to call that. We use this to do different things. One, to talk about different theological issues sometimes. Also, we like to use it as an opportunity to discuss with people in our church when they're on ministry doing things. And today, we have Dr. David Curtis, who is a member of our church, and he serves as a deacon, and he has a great passion to be on mission and travels a lot overseas to use the ministry that God has given him that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But just has a great passion for that, and I wanted to do a video cast today just so we could give you a chance to hear more in depth about what his trip was like that he just got back from over in Africa. David, glad to have you with us today. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Tell us, most of the people in the church, they know who you are and what you do and everything, but can you give just a little summary of you know, you were an eye doctor and so forth, and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I ran an eye clinic here in Denver for about 40 years. Went on my first medical mission trip to India in 1999 and came back just blown away by the incredible need for eye care in the world and what a great evangelism tool eye care is. The World Health Organization says 1 billion people today need eyeglasses that don't have access to them, and that's a big number. So I started trying to recruit eye doctors to go on mission trips overseas and had very little success. So I got real frustrated and decided if I couldn't recruit any eye doctors, I would just train some. So I created a seminar called Eye Doc in a Box, where I train laymen to do eye clinics in third world countries. I did my first seminar in 2003. Since then, I've trained about 2,000 laymen, and I know of about 2.5 million patients that my students have treated. Uganda, last week was my 81st mission trip overseas, and I've treated about 77,000 patients.
Wow, that's amazing. And just, I think one thing I've heard you share is just the response of so many people. I mean, they live in poverty. They don't have the opportunity to go to an eye doctor. Really, there's, when they start having eye issues, there's not much they can do about that. That's just something they have to learn to live with. And I think you've shared with me sometimes just the joy you get in the response of people when they put on those glasses.
Right.
Tell us a story about one of those. Maybe.
Well, it is very impressive because a lot of these folks learn to read, when they're a child, and they can read till they're about 40 years old, and all of a sudden they can't read anymore because the God-given adjustable plus lens inside your eye starts hardening, and you lose access to that God-given plus lens. So you need a plus lens and a pair of glasses to replace it. And if you don't get the plus lens and a pair of glasses, you simply lose the ability to read. You can't see up close. The near vision goes away. And there's a 100% probability of developing this condition. It's called presbyopia. And everybody gets presbyopia, and everybody develops cataracts if they live long enough. And so most of the folks I see on mission trips either come to me because of either presbyopia, the lens getting hard, or cataracts, the lens getting hazy. And it is just pretty amazing to do an exam on a person, give them glasses, and they tell me they can read the Bible for the first time in 15 years. And things like that's just pretty impressive. And even if you can't read, you still need glasses. I was in a village in India, and all these women came in wanting reading glasses. And finally I said, what is going on? Can these women read? The interpreter said, no, nobody in this village can read. They're all illiterate. Well, why in the world they want reading glasses? They had a problem a few months ago. This mother couldn't see very well and fed her young son some rice with a rock in it. He bit down on it, snapped off a tooth, and it abscessed, and he died. So they want glasses to make sure they get rocks out of the rice before they feed their children. And I said, well, that's perfectly reasonable.
Wow.
And these folks sometimes, do handicrafts and make jewelry and things as a livelihood, and all of a sudden they can't do it anymore. Or I was at Ushindi Baptist Church in Mombasa, Kenya, and this guy came in and just started crying. And we asked him what was wrong. He said, I have a wife and 2 children. They're starving. I'm a tailor, and I can no longer see to thread a needle, so I can't sew and earn money and feed my family. So we just gave him a pair of reading glasses, and hopefully he's feeding his family today.
That's amazing. And was that on your recent trip?
No, this was several years ago.
Okay. So let's take a look at the trip that you just got back from.
Okay.
You left, I guess it's probably about 3 weeks ago.
Left May 31st and got back this past Wednesday.
And where did you go?
Went to a city in Uganda called Polisa, which is near the mouth of the Nile River. The Nile River comes out of Lake Victoria and flows 3,000 miles north through Uganda, the Sudan, and Egypt. Okay. And so we were in a city called Polisa, which I work with a ministry called Partner 135, and they have a pretty big ministry in that area. Right. And we went to work with the pastors that they support there. Okay. So that's where we went.
So you were in that city the whole time?
We were out in villages surrounding that city where they were trying to establish churches.
Right. Okay. So what you do this with the hopes of it furthering the kingdom of God. Right. What did you see happen on this trip that you felt like this was definitely worth my time going on this trip?
Well, I basically feel like I accomplished 3 goals on this trip. The first goal is we treated 1,571 patients. Mm-hmm. Many of them were Christians, and that really encouraged them, and also some non-Christians. And they were the gospel was shared with them, and hopefully, and 179 of them prayed to receive Christ. The second thing I think I accomplished, I trained 2 Ugandan pastors how to do the eye clinic, and left them with a refraction kit and about 1,000 pairs of glasses. They can keep doing the mission trip, doing eye clinics after we leave. Right. And when I was there, I talked to Ignatius, who's kind of the lead pastor there. He has about 100 pastors under him, and he had never heard of the 3 circles. Okay. And so I had 1,000 of the booklets printed up, and we gave 9 booklets to each of those 100 pastors, and Ignatius kept 100 of the booklets to give out to people that need them. Yeah. So hopefully they'll start using the 3 circles as part of their ministry. Okay, and if you're wondering what the 3 circles is, if you're a member at Westport, you attend Westport, you probably know what we're talking about, but it's based on this little booklet here, 3 Circles, Life Conversations. Here's the training book, shows the 3 circles on there. But we are looking to launch this to train people in our church in how to share their faith. We want to make sure that the members of our church are comfortable, that they have a good tool that they can use in sharing the gospel with other people. And David and myself and Al Botkins, we've been going through this training booklet ahead of time. I don't know if David knows it, but I want him to do this because I'm going to have him helping with the training as we get closer to our launch date after Labor Day. But David had asked before he went on the trip if he could take some of the booklets that explain the gospel with him. And I think I gave you probably 20 or 30. About 10. 10, okay. I would have given you 20 or 30, but you didn't want that many. That's true. Just to make sure we're clear on that. That is true. But anyway, he took some of those with him. And how did that transpire? I mean, there's got to be a little bit of a story there. I mean, you got over there. I'm sure that they weren't asking you for no. Booklets. I was able to share the 3 circles with somebody on the plane, a young man from Colorado going to Rwanda. Then when I got there, I asked Ignatius if he knew about the 3 circles and what did he think about it. And he said, I've never heard of it. Mm-hmm. And so I shared it with him and another pastor, and they said, this is very good. This is very simple, very straightforward, easy way to share the gospel. We need to get this out to our pastors. Right. And so then I had the 1,000 booklets printed. That's awesome. And we had we had a kind of a meeting Sunday afternoon where all the pastors came, and that's where we gave it to them. So you had 1,000 pastors there. 100 pastors. 100 pastors there. 1,000 booklets. Okay. 1,000 booklets. So 100 pastors were there, and did you get up and present the 3 circles before them? Right. I did. That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow.
Well, that goes a long way because part of our training, we want people to have many opportunities to share that, so they get comfortable doing that.
Right.
So you've shared it with 100 people, although that's only once that you shared it. So
Right.
we'll give you a pat on the back for the 100, but
Okay. This counts as one, though.
yeah, it just counts as one. But no, that's great. And what are your thoughts about the three circles? Just kind of as a little sidebar here with our church that we're going to be jumping into this here in a few months. Well, what are your thoughts about it?
I think it's really, really good. It's a very simple, very easy to understand, and this just encompasses the entire gospel in a 2-minute conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And what my hope is that every what I'm praying for is that every member of our church, will go through this training, and we want to see our deacons go through this before our launch date so that they can be ready to help, as well as our Sunday school teachers so that they can be ready to help as well. But we've got booklets that everybody will be using, which you and Al and myself have been using, and this will help. But I think the key to it is going to be repetition, and that's built into the training. Is that people are practicing it. You're not just watching a gospel presentation and then
Right.
okay, well I see that. We're going to get people in the habit of practicing that with one another, and I think that helps a lot. And I think that even with us, when the three of us were meeting that first time, it was a little bit awkward, trying.
Right.
But here now, and I think for you, you'd probably say it was a little awkward the first time.
Right.
But you've gone from that in such a short period of time to you shared it with 100 pastors in Uganda.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's something people can do. What else? Tell us something else about your trip that might be of interest to everyone.
Uh, got to take a ride on Lake Victoria.
Okay.
Lake Victoria is a huge lake, part in Kenya and part in Uganda, and it claims to be the longest river in the world. Right where the Nile River starts going out of Lake Victoria, there's a huge spring which puts out like 6,000 gallons a minute of water. And it's under Lake Victoria, and you can see the water just boiling on the surface there. All that water coming out. Yeah.
That's amazing. So that lake starts from a spring.
Well, no, it's a huge hole in the ground, and several rivers flow into it.
Oh, okay.
And so it has lots of sources, and that spring just adds to the water coming out of it.
Okay. That's amazing. Yeah.
They have 3 hydro dams, just like about every 3 or 4 miles, because the geography drops down from when it comes out, the Nile River drops down pretty rapidly, and so the water really is rushing, and so it really creates a lot of water power.
Right.
So they have 3 dams there to generate hydroelectricity.
So what's the life of a person, typical person over their life in the villages where you're
in the
going?
villages, they're subsistence farmers. They basically live in a hut, either a mud hut or the more prosperous ones have brick huts, and they just grow the food that they can eat. And so they're totally dependent on the weather. Right now, there's a lot of rain, so the crops are prosperous, so they'll have plenty to eat. But if they have a drought, then they're facing starvation. They live totally hand to mouth. I was talking to a young Christian man, and asked him about their lives, and he said, well, in the cities, the folks, if they don't have jobs, they have nothing, because you have to buy the food in the cities. At least in the rural areas, they can grow food and feed themselves, but they have no money for anything else. And my observation is that one of the biggest stressors that they have is school fees, because the typical family in Uganda is 5 to 9 kids. That's just normal. And then they have to pay fees for them to go to school. And if you don't make any money, that's a huge problem. So that's my observation was that, they don't have many expenses, don't have electricity, they don't have all the expenses that we have, but they want their kids to go to school and get an education.
How expensive is that, do you know?
I don't know exactly how much, but it's a lot more than those subsistence farmers can pay.
Right. So, is there a predominant religion there in that area? Or?
Christianity is probably the predominant religion. In northern Africa, the Muslims came down, and so a lot of the countries in northern Africa are predominantly Muslim, but the middle and south is predominantly Christian.
So does Uganda, does it border Kenya?
It does,
and,
yes.
and maybe Tanzania?
Yes.
Okay. So it's kind of on the east
Right.
side, the east central
Right.
side of Africa there.
Right.
Okay.
And Idi Amin was the dictator there, and his goal was to turn Uganda into a Muslim country. And so he was really pretty vicious in trying
So I
to
remember
achieve
in
that
the
goal.
past hearing, that there were, I don't remember what they call the people that rebel and stuff, but we would call them terrorists here. But what I'm not sure what they call the rogue groups that.
Well, it depends on
which
which side you're on.
Yeah.
They're patriots or terrorists.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, is that still a big issue in Uganda?
Not normally, but last week some terrorists came over from the Congo and attacked a school and killed like 50
Wow.
kids and teachers.
Wow. Those things don't make the news, do they?
And so it's just it was 6 miles inside Uganda. They came in from the Congo and attacked the school and then went back to the Congo.
Well, was there any motive?
I
I
don't know why they did it. I don't know any details.
So I know that. So I've got a friend that he does a lot of missions work over in Uganda and in that area, and he had sent me some pictures where they had started a church a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago, and the picture I was looking at. What struck me as interesting about that picture was that it seemed like that there's probably 100 people in this building that they had built.
Right.
But it seemed like that almost everyone in there that I could see in the picture at least was women and children. And it struck me that I wonder where the men are.
That's true. Women and children are much more responsive.
Is that something you've experienced?
Yes. That's pretty common.
Yeah. Even with the eye clinics?
Well, no, men come to the eye clinic,
Yeah.
yes. But as far as the church services, I've noticed it's predominantly women and children.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's not a bad thing. It's just it'd be better
Right.
if the dads would.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Okay. Well, anything else you want to add to our conversation?
No. I think it was a really good trip. Everybody stayed healthy and everybody had a good trip. There's only 6 of us on the trip, so it was not a big team. We had 2 people dispensing glasses and 2 people doing the witnessing, the counseling, and one lady was kind of the administrator, keeping everything organized. And I did the eye exams.
Yeah, that's one thing I really appreciate about the trips that you take. I know that it's important to you that it's not just a trip where you go to help people with some tangible
humanitarian.
Yeah, it's not just a humanitarian trip. It's,
Right.
It's using those things so that you can deal with a more important issue, and that is their need for Christ.
Right.
So I'm thankful for that. Pastor JB's running sound and video here, and appreciate him jumping in and helping us with that today. It's kind of a last minute thing that we did. But JB, do you have any questions you think need to be added to this? Or
do you have another one planned?
So do you have another, I'll repeat it because I don't know if they can hear you. Do you have another missionary trip?
I may be going to Peru in July, and I'm probably going back to Uganda in September.
Okay. So how many trips have you done in the past year? International trips?
This year's 3 so far.
3. Okay. In 2023?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you joining us today, and I'll just ask everybody to continue praying for Dr. Curtis as he does these trips and with the ministry, and just pray that God will use that and that many people will hear about Christ through this. So thank you all for tuning in. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The web address is www.westport.church, or you can call the church number 704-483-1000, and we would love to talk with you.